Here's why I think you're not progressing through your flight training. Let's say you work Monday to Friday. You work really hard, you come home tired, and after you come home tired, there's really not much time to study. And then comes along the weekend, and now you have to both fly and study. Unfortunately, when the time comes for the next weekend to come around, you actually get really rusty. You might have a booking slot of 2 hours. Out of the 2-hour booking slot, half an hour is going to go in doing the walk around, and then you have an hour and a half with your instructor. But because you're really rusty, the instructor spends the first 30 minutes of the flight lesson teaching you everything you learned in the previous lesson. And even though you're a really smart student, you've tried really hard, flying an airplane for the first time requires a lot of skill, and you don't have that muscle memory to remember it for the next lesson. So unfortunately, you spend the first half of the lesson relearning everything you've learned before, and that wastes a lot of time. How do I know? I've done that same thing myself. I did not learn this until it became too late, and I ended up costing myself $20,000 of extra flight training because what I did was I didn't have the money for flight training. I didn't have the funds. So I worked really hard Monday to Friday. I did that for a couple of weeks, and then I gathered the funds and I flew on the weekends. And every time I had those start stops, I got rusty. Unfortunately, that costs a lot of money. So what I should have done, and this is what I did near the end of my training, is I saved up a whole bunch of money. And what I did was I ended up getting a loan against that money. And that loan was a lot bigger than the money that I saved up. And then I used that loan and I flew nonstop. And the way I flew nonstop is that I took a leave of absence for my main job, which was flight dispatching. I ended up taking a leave of absence for 4 months. I used a loan, and during the leave of absence, I flew nonstop every single day. And while I flew every single day, it only took a couple of days where I got so good so fast that I ended up getting skill level better than my instructor. My instructor himself could not replicate what I was doing from the instructor seat because I was flying so often. See, you got to keep in mind, as an instructor, you don't really fly. Even though you're technically flying as the pilot in command in the instructor seat, you don't actually fly the airplane. You're doing a lot of talking and teaching that way. Your student is the one who's actually gaining the skill. So if you are the student and you're flying every single day, you're going to get really good, really, really fast. So I'd say the real reason why you're not progressing in your flight training is the lack of consistency. And I define consistency as you flying at least 5 times every single week, not on the weekends. We call people who fly on the weekends weekend warriors because everybody you do not see during the entire week, they come out in the weekends to fly. It's also really busy. It's hard to find a time slot. So in my recommendation, what I recommend you doing is either quitting your job cold turkey, but before you do so, make sure you save up a whole bunch of money, or do what I did, take a leave of absence and then fly nonstop during that leave of absence. So hope that helps. You need to stay consistent because when you fly initially and learn how to fly, it's a big learning gap skill-wise, and you need to develop that muscle memory. And worst, you don't want to spend extra money relearning the lesson that you should have learned before because you got rusty. Hopefully that helps. Take care.